Imagine a laptop as a stunning symphony, where sheer power and unwavering efficiency unite in an effortless manner. With every note of raw power balanced with a seamless harmony of efficiency, ensuring that the symphony continues, orchestrating a lasting performance that resonates long after the final chord. So let me tell you, the laptop you see right behind me is exactly what I'm talking about. Hey everyone, this is Siddharth Toprani and this is my review of the Asus TUF A15. So the A15 is one of the newer offerings from Asus, and I've been using it as my main system for a couple of months now, and I'll tell you why this is probably the most complete package I've seen a laptop in its class provide in quite a while. Now, it's a 15-inch laptop weighing around 2.2 kilograms and is quite travel friendly. It's built quite well and has a sturdy construction despite being made of plastic, and has quite a stealth and gamer-like look, which Asus has tried to minimize this year, but I think if they were to tone this down the line, this device definitely has the potential to appeal to a wider audience. This is the only color option it comes in unless you live in China, in which case you get the sick white variant with some teal highlights, and honestly it looks really good. Asus, if you're watching this, being a sucker for an all-white setup, please release that color for the future iterations of this device worldwide. The display on my unit is a 1080p matte finish IPS panel at 144Hz refresh rate, which is G-Sync compatible. Asus claims it to be quite color accurate, and whilst I do not have the necessary tools to test its color accuracy, I do have an Odyssey G7 which is color accurate, and comparing the two panels side by side, the claim does check out. Something quite unique to Asus laptops I feel is that they have a small bump on the lid which allows you to easily open the laptop one-handed. It's a small detail but one I'd say most people would appreciate right off the lid. Sorry. Though something I noticed quite early on is that the screen could be a bit brighter, as I do see myself keeping it on the brightest setting quite often, even in indoor environments. The trackpad on this is great. It's quite big and spacious for a 15-inch laptop and has a very smooth finish to the touch. Gestures work great as it does have Windows precision drivers, though the buttons have quite a soft feedback. The keyboard is good with a decently spaced layout and numpad and one-zone RGB lighting which is fairly bright. The keys have good travel and I can see myself typing for hours on end, though just like the buttons on the trackpad, the keystrokes do feel slightly mushy, lacking the ideal amount of tactile feedback, which, now that I think of it, makes them quite ideal for quieter environments. Here, have a listen. The speakers on these are surprisingly good. They have one grill on either side, and since these are not bottom-firing speakers, this means that they can get quite loud and do not distort or shrill the music at higher volumes, which creates an enjoyable experience for a casual music listening session. The port selection on this is quite good as well, the main ones being the two USB-A ports, one on either side, both being USB 3.2 Gen 1, and two USB-C ports, one that is a 3.2 Gen 2 port, and the other which is the newly added USB 4.0 port. Though it is worth noting that while both these ports support external display via DisplayPort, only the 3.2 Gen 2 port supports added functionality such as enabling G-Sync or using a 100-watt charging adapter for power delivery. I can confirm using a USB-C to DisplayPort 1.4 cable that I was successfully able to use my Odyssey G7 at its maximum resolution of 1440p and its maximum refresh rate of 240Hz, which means I have no doubt that this device could run displays at higher resolutions such as 4K 120, 4K 144 at 8-bit color and 8K 60Hz with no problems. The upside of having the new USB 4 on the system means that if the need may arise, you could take advantage of the 40 gigabit per second transfer speeds compared to 10 gigabit per second transfer speeds which were available on previous iterations. Now, the A15 has quite a few variants. The base tier of the laptop comes with an AMD Ryzen 7 7735HS and an RTX 4050 costing roughly around $1,100. And for around $100 more, you could get the unit that I have, which has the same processor but with an RTX 4060 instead. And while that is not the most affordable pricing we've ever seen on a laptop, we'll see in the performance section why this is definitely one of the more well-rounded systems out there. Recently, there have also been newer models with AMD's Ryzen 9 7940HS processors that have replaced the Ryzen 7s across the board with higher resolution and more color-accurate display options, but these are not available everywhere yet, and the pricing can vary depending on the region you live in. And then Asus has its F series of laptops which have the same GPU options but have Intel processors instead. And while yes, those chips are slightly more powerful, they're not quite as efficient as their AMD counterparts. Now, as mentioned previously, my model has the Ryzen 7 7735HS and the RTX 4060. This combination of processing and graphical fidelity provides quite a good experience both in terms of doing creative tasks as well as gaming. Asus's Armoury Crate software allows you to adjust how the integrated and dedicated GPUs will behave in a given scenario. There are a few options to choose from, though in order to get the best possible results, all the tests were conducted in the ultimate GPU mode, which essentially connects the laptop's display directly to the NVIDIA graphics, bypassing the ones integrated with the CPU, which in turn helps reduce input latency and provides better performance. Though I'd only recommend using this if you are connected to wall power, as it can significantly drain battery life. Armoury Crate allows you to adjust the fan profiles. It has 5 presets to choose from, and believe me when I say this, Asus is not kidding about the silent and turbo modes. When on silent, you cannot hear the fan spin at all, sometimes because they actually aren't, but for the most part it's a really quiet experience. And well, on turbo, it makes the fans rev like a jet engine. The 4060 in the A15 is rated at a TGP of 140 watts with NVIDIA's dynamic boost enabled. Though what I found strange is that in most games I tested, the required wattage never exceeded over 95 watts, even in the most demanding titles. Now this is a common behavior we have seen with NVIDIA's RTX 40 series this year all the way up to the RTX 4070, and if I were to suspect why NVIDIA have added this artificial limit, it's probably to make these chips last longer in compact systems like laptops. But claiming that they have a TGP of 140 watts when they don't even hit that in most workloads is sort of misleading. These are the results of some of the benchmarks I conducted, and while the thermals in these tests are not quite ideal, realistically in most games I tested, the temperatures do not exceed 85 degrees for the CPU and 70 degrees for the GPU. And as far as gaming is concerned, the system performs really well. Since the RTX 40 series is much more efficient compared to previous iterations, this means that it does not require as much power to run well, which in turn leads to cooler temperatures and a longer lasting machine. In all competitive titles I tested, it was a very smooth experience with little to no delay in terms of latency, and overall it was a breeze testing this system. The 40 series of GPUs also bring in a new performance feature called DLSS frame generation, which essentially uses artificial intelligence while gaming to blend frames by creating additional ones to what it thinks would fit in well, which provides a good boost in FPS and makes the games feel much smoother. The drawback to this is that in certain situations there is UI artifacting, whereby some UI elements may look gobbled up. In all games I tested this feature in, which are mostly single player titles, it made a noticeable difference, to a point whereby in games like Cyberpunk, the experience on high graphics turned from barely being playable to being a really good experience. Overall, I think it's a very useful feature to have, and if you're planning on playing titles that have this feature, it makes it a very compelling reason to opt for these newer series of laptops compared to their previous iterations. And I think this feature might end up getting better with some driver updates. Upgrading the system is relatively simple, though I would say it is quite difficult to get the panel off, as this year's model does have a slightly sharper bevel. But once you get around that, the rest of the process just gets easier from there on. You have two 8GB sticks of RAM and one 512GB PCIe Gen 4 drive, which is quite fast. Though I would suggest if you're planning to play games or do some creative work on the system, there is an additional M.2 Gen 4 slot available for further expansion. As this is my main system, I already made the upgrade and made my WD Black NVMe drive as my boot drive. I'll leave a link to how I did that in the description. Battery life is an aspect that, if I'm being honest, is often overlooked in a lot of gaming laptops, as they try to sacrifice it for better performance. Though raw performance prowess without efficiency is like Ferrari without fuel. Yes, it may look impressive, but it won't really get you that far. So believe me when I say this, when I found this laptop to be still running after I left it on overnight, I was quite surprised. It delivered a screen on time of 8 hours and 45 minutes. It's insane to see a gaming laptop come even close to achieving it. I even tried running emulators and running lighter titles on the system when on battery, and even that gave me a decent enough runtime. Another thing I was quite surprised by was how quickly this charges. With the included 240 watt charging adapter, you can charge this system from 0 to 50 in just about half an hour. Which means if you're on the go, this system definitely has you covered. Asus's software also has a few more options that can help with the longevity of the battery life, such as the panel power saver feature, which reduces the refresh rate of the laptop to 60 when unplugged, or the smart battery charging features in the My Asus app that add an artificial limit to the battery so it doesn't charge over 80%, which can further preserve battery health, especially if you're someone who is constantly on wall power. So final thoughts. As much as I wanted to find aspects to this laptop that might have fallen short, I think it's safe to say that Asus has made a very well-rounded system. And I think if you're someone who wants to enter the realm of content creation, or even gaming for that matter, this can serve as a good gateway to that. Given the fact that I don't have other laptops to compare this with and talk about the major or minor differences I might have noticed, from my experience as a standalone system, I definitely recommend it. But before I end this video, I just want to thank everyone who showered upon their love on my first video. Honestly, it's been a tremendous experience to say the least, and I can only hope your support continues on from here. That being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.